Hello everyone, my name is Josh and this is Whimsical and Interesting Musings, and today we're going to be returning to Inside Number 9, Series 2. Now this series has one of my favourite episodes in it, so look forward to me kind of breaking down that particular episode as well as the other episodes on this list too, which are also pretty good and really well received. So yeah, let's get on with the list, shall we? Pull up a chair, get yourself a cup of tea, and let's go back inside number 9. The first episode of Series 2 is called La Couchette, and it centres on a group of people in a train cart going from London to France, and we have a doctor who is trying to get some sleep, and we have a couple who are going to a wedding of their daughters all the way in Paris, and we have a backpacker, an Australian backpacker, and a British upper-class arse traveller as well, who is also trying to get a car on this train and trying to get to a specific destination. We also have a drunk German guy and a dead body. Oh dear. And yeah, this particular episode is pretty damn interesting because it essentially has a very Agatha Christie-esque vibe with the strangers on a train behave. That's not an Agatha Christie story. Yeah, that's more Alfred Hitchcock, Patricia Highsmith kind of thing. But yes, that particular dynamic feels very Agatha Christie-esque, and the fact that there's a dead body, it begins to create a series of questions. How did that body happen to end up dead? And who was this character? Did he have a name? Did he have a family? What's the basic reason of him being on the train? What's going on in this train? Essentially is the question that you should ask. But what the basic premise of this particular episode is meant to be a series of comical gags as well as character interactions. And what's really interesting about this particular setup is all these characters have a certain reason to be the way they are and have a certain reason to be on this train and to go to all the places that they need to go. Certain characters do kind of feel like they have a particular type. Like, say, for example, Reece Shearsmith, who plays this doctor who's just trying to get a good night's sleep, he kind of just plays it as he's a bit of a uptight, very kind of stiff upper lip, very kind of, well-mannered, very kind of, uptight kind of person. But as the series goes on, you realise that he is actually the most level-headed of the group. He can speak different languages. He actually is a very educated person. But he's surrounded by a bunch of people who kind of are mostly just running with their emotions. And that's where the real humour of this particular episode comes in, is what these characters are willing to do in order to make sure that they get off this train without incurring a police charge. Because the bodies just happen to be on this train, and they have no idea how it got there or how this person ended up being dead. All they know is that he's on the train and he's dead, and what are they going to do about it? So it's actually kind of really hilarious to see what type of stuff they get up to in this particular train to try to get away from, incurring a murder charge and all those other such things. But what's very interesting about this episode is that all these characters kind of just happily push the idea of there being a dead body on the train to the side, and they just kind of don't really care. They don't really call it in, they don't really report it to the police. And that's where the real conflict of the episode comes in, the real moral conflict of should they have done what they did, and are they right to just keep quiet about it. And that's one of the key elements of this particular episode that I really, really love, is the more moral trickery of this particular episode. The moral kind of quandary that these characters end up in is quite an interesting element of the episode to play with. There is a fair dose of humour. Some of it is very, slapstick related. Other parts of humour are very, bodily functions related and other such things. But the majority of the humour is very much reliant on double entendres and other such things, and it is very funny. It is a very funny episode. It's very suspenseful. It has a lot of great, performances from the actors. It has a lot of great, twists and turns. And I just think it's an episode that's well worth checking out. It does have a twist that I genuinely didn't see coming, and I literally thought, oh, that was actually a pretty good twist. Well done, number 9. Again, you did such a great job. But yeah, this was a very good episode. I really liked it a lot. And Jack Whitehall is in this episode, as well as Hayley from Coronation Street. I've forgotten the actress's name, but yeah, 2 people that I know of are actually in this particular episode, as well as Eve Pembleton and Reece Shearsmith. But yeah, this one was a pretty good episode, and I definitely will say the real heart of this episode is more the interactions between the characters and them kind of, changing their dynamics with each other, and some characters who you think have a particular stereotype. Like, one's very much gung-ho, kind of like, the stiff upper lip upperclassman. He kind of becomes the more, he becomes the person who actually has a more active involvement. He's actually controlling everything that goes on and making sure everything happens the way it's supposed to be. You kind of think to yourself, why does he care so much about this? But then you realise he's actually a doctor who is trying to basically get to a World Health Organization summit to partake in an essentially groundbreaking bit of research that could change the world of medicine forever. So his pledge is pretty much an important thing that he needs to get into France to do. But he's not going to be able to do that if he has a manslaughter charge on his person. So the fact that he's able to manipulate people and actually make sure that he's actually got the most strong level head out of the group is something that makes you think, oh, that's actually something that, you wouldn't expect someone like him to do. You'd probably think, oh, he's the one who's going to be blaming everybody. He's the one who says we shouldn't trust this person, we shouldn't trust that person. But what's very interesting is he does take a much more, hands-on approach, and he's much more sophisticated. He talks to the German passenger on the train, who is also a doctor. He speaks German to him. So he does have a very active role in this, and what I really love is the comedy is kind of very well balanced. The comedy and the tragic element of this particular episode are very well managed in an equilibrium kind of way, and I really do think that the performances are the key here. And I think the twist is very well done. It has a very it reminds me a lot of the first episode of Series 1, Sardines, in the sense that you have a set of characters all cramped together in one place, and it goes from awkward, just plain awkward, to plain sinister in a matter of minutes. And that's probably one of the things I will say is the first 2 seasons kind of feel like twin images of each other, except in the case of Sardines, you're in one location and it's pretty much, just these upper class people, whereas with La Couchette, you are pretty much focused on all sorts of different people from all different sorts of walks of life. And that's what makes it very interesting, is how all these different characters from all these different backgrounds seem to work off each other is one of the most intriguing aspects of this episode as well. So yeah, that's my I definitely do think it's a really good episode, especially just the twist at the end and the setup of the body on the train and what they're going to do about the entire scenario. It feels like a very good idea for a storyline for this type of show, where it is pretty much, all about the dark comedy, emphasis on the dark comedy, because there is a lot of humour to be had in this particular scenario. Like, there's this one instance where they first see the dead body and they turn the body over, and the doctor says there's some kind of weird cyst or laceration on his cheek, and it's actually a condom. So there's stuff like that, and that makes you just go, oh no. But luckily the show manages to keep you guessing, remake you, wonder how did he get there, and then by the end of the episode you know the answer. So yeah, I definitely will say this is a really good episode. It's not my favourite one. That one is coming up very soon. The next episode is called The 12 Days of Christine, and it follows a woman called Christine Clark, played by the wonderful Sheridan Smith, of 2 Pints and Scylla fame, and she is fantastic. She is absolutely an amazing actress. She really has gone far in her career since being on 2 Pints and The Royal Family, and I do definitely wish her all the best for her career, because she is absolutely killing it in this episode. She really brings home the gold with her performance, because this character could very easily fall flat on her face if she was miscast, because the whole entire point of a character like Christine Clark is you have to get the casting right, and I think they did a very good job with Sheridan Smith. And of course the writing by Steve Hamilton and Reece Shearsmith really do kind of give Sheridan Smith a lot of great acting caliber to work with, and it also stars Tom Riley, who, if you are a fan of the show Da Vinci's Demons, he played Leonardo da Vinci in that particular series as well, and he is absolutely bloody gorgeous. He is absolutely my future husband. I love Tom Riley. He's fantastic, and he plays Adam. And Adam is unfortunately not as likable as Da Vinci is in Da Vinci's Demons. So yeah, he definitely isn't all that likable in this particular episode. But the whole entire story of the 12 Days of Christine is we basically see a fly-in-the-wall, slice-of-life type story about the life of a girl by the name of Christine Clark. And we see her from when she first meets Adam, where they just basically have a drunken fling at a New Year's Eve party, and it's all very nice, it's all very lovely, they're all laughing, they're all a bit drunk, he's kind of, carrying her in, and he's dressed as a fireman, and she's dressed as a nun, and you're thinking, oh, they must have had a really good time, it's actually really lovely, but then we start skipping to all other different holidays, like the second day that we skip to is Valentine's Day, and then we skip to her birthday, and then various other bridges in between throughout various different months, and all the while, not only does she have to deal with all the things that we have to deal with in life, which is love, loss, and all the things in between. Life, love, loss, and all the things in between. But she's also haunted by some very weird apparitions. One of which is Reece Shearsmith in a sort of see-through trench coat with fogged up glasses. You're wondering, who is this person and what does he have to do with her? But as the story goes on, there's various bits and pieces that really do start to clue you in on what's really going on. And I'm not going to reveal the twist because it's one of their best ones. I do think it's one of those ones that really does feel like an emotional gut punch. And I think Sheridan Smith, Steve Pemberton, and Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton's writing and Sheridan Smith's performance really sell this very heartbreaking twist. Yes, and it's so good. I would highly recommend people watch it. Even if it's just your introductory episode to the series, what a way to start! Because honestly, this episode is an absolute masterclass on how to do really good suspense, surrealism, and really good, slice of life emotional drama with a little hint of, heart warmth and tragedy and a little bit of humour, just a little bit, but not too much to the point where it actually breaks the tone, which is really good. But this episode was actually particularly really, really wonderful. I love this episode. It's one of my favourites. And that is the 12 Days of Christine. It's an awesome episode, and I would highly recommend checking it out if it's your first time checking out Inside Number 9. It's one of my favourites. And that's the 12 Days of Christine. It's a fabulous episode. Go check it out. And the next episode is... I'm just getting up the list right now. The next episode is The Trial of Elizabeth Gage. And this episode is very, very bizarre. If you are familiar with history, there was a time in the 18th century, 17th century, where a group of Puritans basically created an organisation called the Witchfinders, who were basically tasked with the horrific duty of trying to uncover witchcraft in their local communities. Some women were probably witches or guilty of witchcraft. We don't really know for certain because there were a lot of conflicting, testimonies at that time. But for the most part, a lot of the women who were burned at the stake or treated horribly and tortured horrifically were innocent women who were just basically guilty of being unmarried women who live on their own and basically have nothing really to offer society except the fact that they love to talk to their animals and they love to, talk to various different people in the community. But that apparently equals witchcraft. If you're a strong, independent woman back in the Middle Ages, you're practically evil, apparently, according to a bunch of uptight, elderly men in weird hats. So, yeah, that's pretty messed up. But this episode is actually really funny, despite the very grim subject matter. Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton are basically witchfinders who get invited to a local community known as Little Happens, and they have to attend a trial and oversee the execution or the supposed legitimacy of the claims that whether or not the old spinster woman of Elizabeth Gage is in fact guilty of witchcraft, or if she's an innocent woman. And this entire episode just feels like Comedy Writers 101, because this actually does feel like a really good episode from the point of view of comedy. This episode just brings on the laughs and keeps them coming, and it's just really insane. And it's also really funny because of how absurd a lot of the evidence-based ways in which they can weasel out witchcraft from a person can be. Like, there's even one scene where they basically say that, it's like that classic Monty Python and the Holy Grail sketch where if she floats, she's a witch, but if she, if she floats, she's a regular person. But if he drowns, she's a witch. Well, obviously, you are going to drown if you're in water. So I don't know where that logic came from, but yeah, it's one of those things. And that particular sketch from Monty Python ends in one of my favourite lines, where they just basically knock the beam down, and she ends up weighing more than a duck, and they basically go, "Burn her!" And she just goes, "That's a fair cop." That's my favourite Monty Python line, honestly. Yeah, that's a fair cop. Oh, honestly, I could talk about Monty Python all day. If you want to see a video of me just talking about Monty Python, I'd happily make one. It's a pleasure to do. So, yeah, this episode is really funny. It's really absurd because the whole entire reason why she got accused of witchcraft is because her daughter and her son-in-law don't want her living in the house anymore. Like, they just say, "Oh, we'll just accuse her of witchcraft." What harm can that do? I thought that was weird. And of course, I have to give a shout out to David Warner, who is fabulous in this episode. He's very funny. I love his little one-liners. I love his comments on certain things. He's actually surprisingly the one that has the most humorous moments in this episode, because usually when you cast an actor like David Warner, you usually want him to play it dead straight and be the uber serious person that he is. I mean, even in comedies like, like Time Bandits, for instance, he's actually a really intimidating person. But when he does the silliness, he really brings it home, and I think that's something worth talking about. But yeah, the Trial of Elizabeth Gage is a really good episode, and it does remind me in places of the film The Witch, which is a really good film, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But yeah, this episode is really good. It's got a great twist that I genuinely wasn't expecting, because I literally thought, oh, this is actually going to be one of those episodes where it goes in maybe a different direction, probably, but nope. that actually was very different. But yeah, I would highly recommend this episode. It's amazing. It's called The Trial of Elizabeth Gage, and it would definitely be a good one to watch if you want to check out Inside Number 9 for the very first time. Now, right now, on to the next episode. It is Cold Comfort, and this episode follows Andy, played by Steve Pemberton, who's just started at a comfort support line centre, and him, along with a few of his colleagues like Steve Pemberton and Jane Horrocks, who, if you don't know who Jane Horrocks is, she was in a television show called Trolleyed, but she was also in Absolutely Fabulous. She plays Adina Monsoon's assistant or PA, who's a bit dumb. She's a great actress. She's really funny, and whenever I see her in something, I'm always happy to see her in it, because she always brings her A game, even when whether she's doing a serious role or whether she's doing a downright comedic role, she always does a very good job. And of course, she did the voice of Babs from Chicken Run, which was a childhood favourite of mine. So yeah, I absolutely think on the cast alone, it's absolutely spot on, stellar. But this episode follows Andy. He starts his first day at a new comfort support line centre, where basically you are meant to pick up the phone to people who are literally in trouble, whether they are threatening to take their own lives, threatening to take someone else's, or threatening to do something really stupid and really terrible that could affect their well-being in any kind of way. Or whether they're just depressed, or whether they just need someone to talk to. Comfort support lines are usually always there to help. And one day, when Andy is on the job, he gets a phone call from a supposed teenager by the name of Chloe, who is threatening to commit suicide. In fact, according to her, on this phone call, this very first phone call, she has already taken some some tablets to pretty much, kill herself. And it's really horrible, and it's really awful. If you are very, easily triggered, or if you are, if you find, that the topic of suicide, whether it's discussed or whether it's openly, acted out in full, I would highly recommend, proceeding with this episode with caution, because it does deal with a lot of very difficult to handle subject matters, such as, grief and suicide and other such things. So I will definitely recommend giving this episode a skip if you find, that the subject matter of suicide very difficult to watch, or find it very triggering in any way. I would highly recommend giving this one a skip. But yes, this episode is really good because as the the story goes on, this particular phone call he has with Chloe ends up having a greater rippling effect than he could have first foreseen, and it changes his life forever. And that's all I'm really going to say about the episode of Cold Comforts, because this is one of those ones where you have to go into it knowing very little about it, because honestly, when you do, you really do kind of feel like you're along for a really riveting ride from start to finish. And the entire thing is told from the point of view of CCTV footage. And that, to me, is just a very intriguing way of telling a story anyway, from a visual perspective. So having it be the majority of the episode be from that perspective is actually a very good way of giving intimacy to proceedings, and giving us intimacy with Andy as a character. Excuse me. Dealing with Andy as a character, it gives us a very good job of a good connectivity and a good connection with him as well overall. And this was a very good episode with a really great twist that I definitely felt left my jaw dropped. So that is Cold Comforts, and it's a pretty good one. I would highly recommend it. But if you are easily triggered by suicide scenes, or discussions of suicide, or depictions of suicide in film or television, or even in literature, I would highly recommend giving this episode a skip. But if you are okay with that and that you find it very manageable, I would definitely recommend watching this in RP, because it is a very funny episode too. There are little moments of humour as well, so I'd highly recommend it. It's called Cold Comforts, and it is episode 4 of series 2. Go check it out. The next episode, the penultimate episode of series 2, is Nana's Party, and this one, I'm gonna say, doesn't really have that much to it. It just simply is a series of shenanigans that happen. There is a story that happens in it, but I felt like this was one of those ones where you could just put it on, and it's an okay episode. It's a fine episode to watch if you're just looking for something to watch, because it is a really funny episode. Steve Pimpton and Reece Shearsmith are in this one again, and they do a very good job playing the characters that they play. But I just felt like this one didn't really do anything for me, except for the ending, of course. The ending is pretty damn funny. I think the ending is worth the price of admission alone, and of course the actress who plays Nana is absolutely funny. She was in Benidorm. She plays Johnny Vegas's mother in Benidorm. She's a hilarious character, a hilarious actress. She basically plays her character in that as the Nana in this. So she's worth the price of admission alone. I mean, she literally can, bring on the laughs any time of day. And I just really love that ending. That ending is just so perfect. And you will not be thinking about the casualty theme in the same way if you watch the end of this episode. I certainly didn't. So yeah, that's Nana's Party. Not really that much to say about it, but go watch it. And if you have seen it and if you like it, give me a message down in the comments, and we'll talk about it, because I think it's an okay episode. It just didn't really do anything for me in the grand scheme of things. It was funny, but I just felt like it didn't really have that much in terms of story. There was a story there, but I just felt like I felt like there were better versions of that kind of story later on in the episodes. If I did speak about the episode of Empty Orchestra as an example of one of these types of storylines being done way better. So if you've heard me talk about that particular episode, you'll know what I'm talking about, and I'll go further into detail when we get to that episode later on down the line. So look forward to that in my next season overlook of Inside Number 9. The final episode of Series 2 is called Seance Time, and this is the last episode. And once again, like with the Harrowing, it's an episode that is mostly centred around the supernatural. And at first, it's kind of depicted as a very standard seance, with Steve Pemberton playing this TV presenter who is basically looking to bring back this old television show, this hidden camera show that basically got taken off the air for reasons. And it's only until we get deeper into the episode and we realise what actually happened. And it's the television presenter is called Hives, and he's played by Shearsmith, and he is, for all intents and purposes, great at playing that a-hole presenter boss character. Like, you know, that guy who just is totally, you know, unreasonable. He's totally douchey. You know, those types of bosses that you just really think to yourself, how do you sleep at night knowing you're this nasty or this horrible kind of thing? But yeah, he's not a very nice person. He's actually very selfish, and he's very, you know, he's very egotistical. He only cares about the ratings. And as the episode goes on, we realise that there's actually a reason why his show was cancelled the first time round. And as the story goes on, and with a few twists and turns, we begin to see why that was. And it's a fantastic episode. I will definitely say that this is one of the ones where I felt like the emotional core and the subjectivity of guilt is at play in this particular episode. And the general theme of this particular episode, this particular season overall, is the theme of guilt. The theme of guilt kind of bleeds through a lot of these episodes. Like with the first episode, La Couchette, the entire cast is kind of on the fence about whether what they did with not telling anyone about the dead body on the train is kind of something that keeps getting brought up time and time again. With the 12 Days of Christine, I think it's more the guilt of not having lived her life to the fullest. If you could attach a theme onto that particular episode, it's all about, you know, life flashing before your eyes, and that really kind of that's probably a bit of a spoiler, but the fact that, you know, the theme of guilt is also in that episode as well, like the idea of, you know, you not having enough time to kind of do the things that you want to do, or say the things that you want to say to the people that you love before they pass on. That's something that was kind of a theme in that episode. But yeah, I definitely do think the theme of guilt is in this episode. The only odd one out that I can think of. But actually, even the trial of Elizabeth Gage kind of feeds into that theme, because one of the Witchfinder generals actually begins to have a guilty conscience with the idea of, you know, taking these supposedly innocent women and basically committing them to the stake and burning them at the stake and all these other things. So yeah, I think the theme of guilt is kind of a very big thing with the entirety of season 2 of Inside Number 9. The idea of dealing with guilt and dealing with past trauma is all the hallmarks of this particular season. And in Cold Comfort, obviously the main character of Alan is feeling guilty because there's one person, a teenager, has actually died. He's actually had to listen to this teenager die on the phone, and he's had to, you know, sing the song Shine by Take That in order to basically comfort her as she goes over to the other side. And that really is quite a sad scene. Honestly, that scene got me choked up the first time, because I honestly felt like it was so powerful. And obviously Steve Pemberton doesn't get a lot of credit as a serious actor, but whenever he does do serious performances, it really floors me, and it makes me think, wow, this guy can really, really perform and do a really good job at it. But yeah, the theme of guilt is kind of the big send-off with this entire season. I feel like that theme is constant throughout. If you disagree, if you do feel like there's other elements to play with in this particular season, please give me a comment and actually let me know what you think of the first 2 seasons. And that's what I'm And that's all I have to say about season 2. I definitely really enjoyed Seance Time. I definitely think it's one of the best ones of series 6. A lot of people have said online that the sixth episode of every series is kind of a bit of a downer or a bit underwhelming. But so far, I've been actually kind of really liking them. They've both been very interesting and been very camp, but they've also been really fun to watch and really interesting to see unravel. And that's all I'm going to say about Series 2 of Inside Number 9. And I will be uploading another video later on today. I will be trying to upload 2 videos a day of either Inside Number 9 or something different. So if you want to see more Inside Number 9 series breakdowns, hit that subscribe button and leave us a like, because I really do appreciate it. And have a very good day, and I hope you're all doing very well. This has been Joshua with whimsical and interesting musings, and I hope you have a very good day. Bye.